So hello and welcome to part 7 of the ongoing AS and A-Level Java series. And in today's episode, we are going to be looking at operators. Alright, so up until this moment, we were making use of an operator, and you might not have realized it. So in Java, we have something that is called an assignment operator. And basically what this does is that it's going to allow you to assign a value on the right, to maybe an identifier on the left. And we were doing this when we were declaring variables and constants in the previous tutorials or in the previous episodes. So for instance, just to refresh your mind, we can declare a variable called score, right? On the left, we have the type declaration as well as the identifier. Then we can actually put a score inside of the actual value, that is 78,990. That's the actual score value that will be stored inside of the variable called score. So we do this by making use of something that's called the assignment operator. Maybe let me just zoom in a bit so that you guys can see better. Alright, so this is the assignment operator in Java, right? So maybe suppose that we wanted to, maybe what we can do, we can just go ahead and maybe system dot out dot print line, and let's just output score there, right? Let me just copy this. I might actually need to paste it as we progress, as I will be printing out values as we go. So there's actually something called an increment operator. So there's actually two ways you can go about incrementing your values in Java, but there's a dedicated increment operator that you can make use of. So suppose that you wanted to increase score by, maybe say by just 1, right? The way you'd go about it is to just type score, then 2 followed by 2 plus symbols. So basically this is the increment operator. So maybe what I can actually do is I can maybe change this to a value like 10, so that it's not too big. You can actually see the changes as we progress. So let me just go ahead and run this code, and you'll see what's going on here. So initially you will notice that it outputs the value 10, right, which is the current value that we are storing inside of score. But I want you to notice that in this case we didn't even assign the value 11 to it, but we simply typed on line number 10 there, we simply typed score plus plus, and it gave us, or it incremented the value of score by 1 to make it 11. Then you might also be thinking that we can, since we can make use of the double plus sign, we can also make use of the double negative or minus sign. And yes, that's true. So if you do that, you would expect to get that the value of score will go back to 10, because we first have 10, then we increment it to 11, then we decrement it after printing it from 10, right? From 11, sorry, we now decrement it, and this time around it should print 10. And if we go ahead and run that code, you see that currently we have 10 initially, right? Then we increment to 11. Then later on we decrement right here on line 12 to by 1. So basically it prints 10 there. Alright, so so that's increment. So maybe I might as well just put increment. Actually, if I do that, oh yeah, it works. So increment slash decrement, is it? So you can increment a value by 1, or you can decrement a value by 1. Then there's also something called the ternary or the conditional operator. So this one I'm going to avoid to demonstrate it to you as of this moment, because we haven't really looked at decision making. But basically it looks something like so. It uses a question mark and a colon, right? So basically you are going to say if this, right, then this, let's just say then, right, otherwise, right? So I'm not really going to delve much into the ternary operator as of this moment, because we haven't looked at decision making, but it's a short way of having to write an if-else statement, as you shall come to realize later on. The next up, we have string concatenation, and Java utilizes a concept, utilizes the concept of overloading, as it were. So overloading basically is whereby we have an entity, right, and that particular entity can be used in different kinds of situations. Is it actually, the technical term for that is called polymorphism, whereby you have one thing then depending with the use case, it's actually going to be it has a different meaning basically. Yeah, so that's called polymorphism in Java, and polymorphism is supported by something called overloading entities. So maybe we can overload an operator like the plus operator, as you shall come to realize in a second. Actually, I do have system without on my keyboard here. So maybe what I can do is I can just say hello, right? Then maybe what I want to do is I need to have maybe a variable called name. So let me actually go back on line 19 here and declare okay, I'm not looking to use string buffer. Let me declare the variable called name, and let me just say Ben. Yeah, then we save. Then we are going to run this, and then I'll come back and explain what's going on. So you should, as you should expect, it's going to print hello Ben. Yes. So what happens is that it's going to concatenate this string, right, with this literal that you have going on here. Right. So basically, concatenation is joining. You can think of joining strings. So the plus symbol, as we shall come to realize when we come to the arithmetic section, it can also be used to add two numbers together, or it can also be used to concatenate strings. See, is it? So we say that the plus operator is overloaded, and that feature is supported by the capability of Java, something called polymorphism. Whereas poly means many, then phisms basically means shapes. So basically, one thing can assume different use cases or meanings in different use cases, as it were. Then we do have the arithmetic operators. These ones you will be familiar with them. Maybe the only addition that I would want to mention is the modulo operator. So we have plus, we have minus, we have divided by, which is done by the /. We have multiplication, which is done by the star or the asterisk, and we have the modulo operator, basically, otherwise known as the remainder operator. So maybe let's actually declare two values. Let's declare int and call this one num1, and let's make it 100. 100. Then we can also have num2 and assign it a value of 50. Let me just scroll them so that you don't have to look, your eyes don't have to go all the way down my screen there. Just like that. Then now maybe what you can do is we can then just system dot out dot println. Then we can say num1 plus num2. Yeah. Then we paste that a couple times, maybe 4 more times. Then we make use of the subtraction sign, we make use of the multiplication sign, then we make use of the division sign, then we finally make use of the modulo operator, or the remainder operator, as it were. Then we run this code and see what it gives us in the console. So you realize that 150, that's for sum, 50 is for difference, 5000 for multiplication, 2 is for the division, and finally 0 is for the remainder. So basically it's saying that when you divide num2, which is 50, by num1 by num2, 100 divided by 50, you're not going to get any remainder, is it? So if we were to divide maybe say 10 and 3, you'd realize that we would get a remainder of 1 in that case. So let's actually do that and run the code and see that in action. So I want you to pay attention at this last output here. You see that it gives us 1, right? So it means that if you divide 10 by 3, you're going to get a remainder of 1. So that's what the modulo operator does. So these are your basic arithmetic operators. The next up, we have assignment shorthand. So remember earlier on, we were making use of the increment operator, whereby if we wanted to increase a value by 1, we're just making use of the double plus sign. But in some instances, you might actually want to increase a value by say maybe say 10, is it? And the traditional way to go about it is to go about it like so. So let's output score here. Right, so it realized that in this case we are going to get I'm not really sure about the value because we played around with it here a bit. So let's actually go ahead and just run the code and see what we get in the console. Let me just clear the screen there, then restart the console, the terminal rather. Alright, so we are getting 20, is it? Because the value of score was reverted back to 10 on line number 12. So currently the value of score is 10. Then we are saying 10 plus 10, then we store that as the new value of score in this case, is it? So this is the traditional way of assigning value, or rather adding a certain value to a variable that already exists. But maybe you might want to do this the short way. So this is the assignment shorthand. So the way you go about it is you say score plus equal then maybe 10, is it? So in order for me to show you that this is actually the same thing, I'm going to comment out this line, then run the code one more time, and I want you to compare the outputs from the previous. You see that here when we run it we had 20, right? And this time when we run it for the second time we still have 20, is it? So it just goes on to show you that this is the assignment shorthand. You don't really need to type the value like so, like saying score equal to score plus 10, but you just need to say score plus equal 10, then it's going to work. Yeah. Then let's move on to the conditional and. This one I'm just going to show you the symbol because we haven't even really looked at decision making basically, but this is 2 ampersands or 2 and signs, is it? That's the conditional and you can think of this as if you go back to Boolean logic, you have that Boolean and, is it? So maybe there are some instances whereby you want the username and the password to match before you can grant a user access into the system. So that's when you would use the conditional and statement there. Then there's also the Boolean or, right? So I'm just going to comment it out. Okay, let me just. So the way you write the Boolean or is to make use of the double pipe symbol. This one you find it just below the backspace key, and you have to press shift in order for you to type this particular character, right? So it's called the pipe symbol. So we make use of 2 pipe symbols, and that gives us the conditional or, right? So this one is equivalent to the Boolean or, whereby you only want at least one condition to be met before you can proceed to run a certain segment of code. So that's the conditional or. So these ones we actually get a chance to see them in action when we look at decision making later on as we progress with the course. But for the meantime, this just showing you the symbols it will suffice for now. Then we do have relational operators. So these relational operators we have. Let's make use of let's use doubles this time around. So let's declare double called x and make it 89. Then let's declare a double called y and make it 12 maybe, right? Then maybe we want to system.out.println and check to see, or rather compare this particular and check the relationship between these 2 values. So we can say x less than y, yeah. So the relational operators, what they do now is that they are going to yield a value of either true or false depending on the values that you will be using in this case. So in this case let's do x greater than y. Then maybe let's copy and paste it a couple times, 1 2 3 4. Then maybe we can also do x greater than or equal to y. Then we can do x less than or equal to y, right? Then you might also want to check for equality. Now, so the way we check for equality in Java is we make use of the double equal signs, right? Why? Because the single equal sign is reserved for assignment. So we need to make use of the double equal sign when we are trying to compare for equality. But this only works for primitives. You cannot do this with object types, like maybe you can't compare strings this way by using the double equal sign. We shall look at ways in which you can compare if 2 strings are equal or if 2 objects are equal. Then finally you also need to check if something is not equal to something. So the way you do it is you make use of the not operator, right, which is an exclamation mark and an equal sign. So basically this forms what we call the not equal operator. So let's just go ahead and run that and see what's output in the console. So you see that it's giving us true, false, true, true, false, false, true. So basically what is doing that these operators, they return a boolean true or false depending on the condition or depending on the numbers that you have going on, is it? So like in the first case, we compared if x is less than y, so it says that that's false, is it? Then it also went on to check what these are the conditions for their relation, and it returns a boolean value. So it's the relational operators always return either a true or a false. All right, I think equality, yeah, these were supposed to go under equality maybe. So let's actually cut these and paste them here. All right, and then there are a couple more operators really that we will make use of as we progress with the course, but these ones are a bit on the advanced side, is it? So maybe once we've progressed a bit further into the course, I will then come back and introduce these concepts, or rather these operators to you, like the instance of which checks if a particular object is an instance of a certain class, lambdas, which are used to in anonymous for creating anonymous functions, as well as interfaces and inner classes, bitwise or logical operators, which are basically used to do bitwise operations. Like for instance, if you wanted just to manipulate a single bit within a value that is inside of a register, you can actually do that using the bitwise or logical operators, as well as the bitwise shift operators. Basically these do the logical binary shifts, right? For instance, if you wanted to shift a number 2 spaces to the left or to the right, you would make use of a bitwise shift operator. But these ones, they are a bit on the advanced side, so maybe we'll look at them later on in the course. But I think for now, that's just about it for this tutorial. I'll see you in the next one.